This is the R Lads Football Network, and you are watching Jets FM as we return to talk Jets football. And we haven't really talked a lot of Jets football on the R Lads Football Network over the last few months, maybe since the draft. Uh, but we have talked here and there about Jamal Adams and his whining and a whole bunch of other things, but mostly pertaining to Jamal Adams here and there, little tidbits. Now, after what happened yesterday on Saturday with the official trade of Jamal Adams, not only have we returned for Jets FM, but we will also talk a lot about the Jets and their trade tomorrow. We've got a show with Ryan Dunleavy. That's the OFN Today. We're going to talk NFC North football on that one with Jeff Risdon, who covers the Detroit Lions. Ryan, of course, from the New York Post, will talk to me about the Adams trade on that show, too. Tuesday, I believe, we are going to talk with our Seattle analyst on the Seattle side of things. So that'll be, we're pretty sure that's going to be on Tuesday. But anyway, bottom line is, with a lot of Jet talk coming up this week with the Jamal Adams trade, that means Jan Levine is back. And Jan, I know we've had our little texts back and forth over the last few months on little issues here and there, which really the whole Jamal Adams thing was, in my mind, little issues, because it really just felt like, okay, whatever, this will eventually work itself out. But then about 48 hours before he finally got traded, all the news came out where he was trashing Woody Johnson, he was trashing Adam Gase, and at that point, I think we all had a pretty good idea that the end was near.
No question. First of all, good to be back. Secondly, I mean, yeah, from the stories that have come out subsequent to the trade, it sounds as if that conversations had been well underway and in the works, even prior to the recent 48 hours of information coming out from Adams. And the big point, as mentioned, was the confirmation as to what the salary cap was going to be, given Adams's demands and what he wants moving forward. Seattle needed to get some kind of assurance that the cap wasn't going to decline substantively, which would have impacted their ability to pay him and also potentially trade for him. So I would say that the final straw was most likely those two announcements that came out from Adams related to, as you mentioned, Woody Johnson and Adam Gase. But even without either one occurring, there was a decent possibility that a trade might have been made based upon how much traction had occurred between the two teams before that.
And look, as far as how, like, was this actually the final nail in the coffin? Did Seattle already have this on the table, and it took until the Woody bashing and the Gase bashing for Douglas to just pull the trigger? Who knows? But fact is, bottom line, he's gone. And I said it on one of my shows a couple of weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, how upset I was at everything that Jamal Adams was doing and saying. And I didn't, most of all, I just didn't like how he was treating Jet fans, to tell you the truth, because everything that he was doing, consciously or not, he was really angering Jet fans. He was letting them down. And now that he's gone, I just doubt there is going to be more than 10% of the fan base that's going to be on Jamal Adams' side.
For me, it's not necessarily a side thing, right? So, look, I think we all know the level of talent that Adam has. He's shown that since he came on board, and we've seen with some other Jets first-round picks that were heavily hyped that didn't meet the hype. Adams is one of those that met and potentially exceeded what our hopes were for him when he came on board. Still some questions in terms of his coverage ability, but in terms of being a weapon and a major weapon from the back line and utilized particularly well by defensive coordinator Greg Williams, he showed his value over the last couple of seasons. But the problem is he couldn't get out of his own way in terms of wanting to get paid, right? He saw the contract that Eddie Jackson got. He felt that he was worthy of a contract far exceeding Jackson, which potentially could be 100% accurate, but he wasn't willing to wait. On one hand, you can argue that, look, the NFL, you're one play away from seeing your career go up in smoke, so you want to get paid when you want to get paid. But on the other side is you have signed a rookie-level contract, and because of where you were drafted, the Jets had your rights for at least 2 more years and potentially could have franchised you 2 more years beyond that. So the hope was that the two sides could find a way to bridge that gap. The problem is, and I'm sure we'll go into it, it's what came out of Joe Douglas's mouth on one side
Which, by the way, you're
versus
never
what.
going to find out.
Well, no, but again, remember, he had said that he wanted Adams to
Yeah,
be a Jet, right? And he
sure.
had said also that he was willing to have negotiations and conversations in that regard with Adams.
Sure.
From what we've heard, and whether or not it's
No, no, wait a
100%
minute. Whoa,
accurate,
whoa, whoa.
it's
From what you've heard from who?
what was reported.
Oh,
Let's put it
from what
that way.
was
How's that?
reported from who?
All over the media.
From Jamal Adams and his agent. So my
Okay.
point is, we are never going to get Joe Douglas's side. He is, because he has no reason to give his side. And well, he's going to come out and he's going to start talking about what happened in their relationship. He's never going to say it. And I don't think he ever should. So, all right. So
Okay.
let me ask you then, how do you feel about Jamal Adams leaving?
It's funny because a friend of mine asked me earlier, a couple of guys who I do some other stuff with, and I said, look, I am betwixt and between on this one, right? I understand the comments he made are damaging, are damaging from a team morale perspective. And if you're, as you said, from what Jet fans would think, if you are portraying yourself as a leader, right? And you saw the tweet that Le'Veon Bell came out with yesterday, right? If you're portraying yourself as a leader and you're trying to get talent to the team and bring others on board and holding yourself out to be a leader on the team, then you can't necessarily go about making the comments that you made about your former owner and about your current coach and expecting to be viewed upon as a leader within the locker room.
Right.
On the other side, I recognize the weapon that he is from the back line.
We all do. We all love his game, but
and how valuable that is, right? And in the NFL, schemes help, but talent wins, right? You can have all the scheming you want. If you don't have the level of talent that you need, then you're not going to win. And his departure,
which is all on his talent.
It's
all on him. His departure is all on him.
But irrespective of that, it still takes away a substantive amount of talent. Your best defensive player
we're
is
not
now
happy.
No longer there.
No Jet fans are happy that Jamal Adams is gone. But the question then is, again, how do you feel about it? How do you feel about Jamal Adams today?
How do I feel about Adams? I think so. It's a couple things. So first of all, you got to go back into history, right? So Adams' father.
We have to understand Jamal Adams now. That's what we have to do. We've got to try to understand him.
No, you have to understand part of his rationale for wanting to pay, right? His father's career got cut short because of injuries, right? He's seen what his father has gone through, and his father has been very adamant at times about his son.
Did he just get a new contract with the Seattle Seahawks?
I think he does, yes.
No, did he?
No, he just got traded.
Of course he didn't. So what? Khalil Mack got traded, got a contract the next day.
Will he get a contract in the near term?
No. Does he have a contract today with Seattle to give him all of this money that you're trying to tell me that we're trying to understand him? That he did this because he wants to make sure if he gets hurt, he gets paid. Well, he just got traded to Seattle. I don't hear him. He's not coming out and all of a sudden saying, "Wait, where's my money in Seattle? I haven't got my contract." This was all supposed to be about money and a contract.
So your view is that it had nothing to do with money and contract and him just wanting out of New York?
My point is that he handled this so badly that I'm not even sure that he gets it. And I'm not even sure that he'll probably understand it. You know when he'll probably understand it? If the time comes where Seattle doesn't win a Super Bowl, and now it's time next year for him to ask for a contract, and maybe Seattle doesn't have the money to pay him. And then maybe that'll be a wake-up call that. But look, even if Seattle does pay him, and I don't know Seattle's cap situation. I'll talk to our contact on Tuesday, hopefully, about that. But the fact is, come on. That's why I asked you. The question is, what do you feel about Jamal Adams? So you're kind of trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. I just look. I think I'll put it this way: if there was no pandemic, this never would have happened.
Optically, he handled it poorly. There's no question he handled it poorly. The question, though, that you said we will never know is whether or not Douglas, who reportedly had said he wanted him to be a Jet for life and was willing to have conversations with him.
What is your guess on that?
Did he ever have those type of
what is your guess on that
conversations?
What's your guess on that?
Or was that pure lip service?
What's your guess on that?
I don't think he had those discussions.
Thank you.
In my opinion.
Neither do I.
Look, my opinion on this one is also, you and I talked a lot about this last year, right? You know my view on Robbie Anderson, and you know my view of wanting him back.
Sure.
But we also know that Douglas has a very finite value in terms of what he puts on players and really refuses to ever budge. And that intransigence may have potentially played a role
Well,
in him not being willing or wanting to give Adams the type of money that he wants, right? And as
come
a
on.
GM, I
Robbie
understand
Anderson and
having that.
Adams are two different players, two different situations.
But again,
Anderson is just a guy that was making what, 10 million. He was making $2 million more than he would have gotten with the Jets probably. So in that situation, Jamal Adams never would have left. The Jets would have found a way. So I think so, and I think it is too early to judge Douglas on two players that are gone. I think, look, part of this might be with not only which you're completely right about, Eddie Jackson. The other thing that probably comes into it is C.J. Mosley. But again, these are deals. So that's the thing that we're trying to make people understand, and maybe Adams just doesn't get it, that Joe Douglas had his first full offseason this past offseason with free agency, with draft picks, with everything. And it's like the media, and even for some strange reason, Jamal Adams, but definitely the media, wants to portray that, oh, it's the same old Jets. You know, what Maccagnan did with the Jets is what Douglas is doing with the Jets, when it has no correlation whatsoever. See, I love everything Douglas has done, and the fact that he was able to get 2 first-round draft picks for Douglas speaks volumes. I'm not happy Jamal Adams ain't here. But the fact that because we talked about it and we cemented that in our conversations, that there's no way that Joe Douglas could trade Jamal Adams without getting 2 first-round draft picks. Nobody else in the media was saying it anywhere because they thought it was crazy. There was no way the Jets were going to get 2 first-round draft picks for a safety. And that's why the point was, well, if the Jets aren't going to get 2 first-round draft picks, then they're not going to trade him. They got their 2 first-round draft picks. That is a great move by Joe Douglas under a terrible situation. Which, hey, imagine if Adams comes in, plays this year, and then what happens next year? Maybe he's in a better situation where he can kind of find a way to get out, and maybe there's no way the Jets can get more than a first-round draft pick because he's a year away from busting out. I don't know. But aren't you happy that Joe Douglas got 2 first-round draft picks?
In terms of the return, yeah, there's no question, right? We talked about this a lot, right? Granted, I would have loved to get the wide receiver in the number 1, potentially if you got an elite wide receiver, but we all both knew that was likely not going to happen.
Yeah.
So getting the 2 1s, and then granted getting the 3, and as well as a guy who is a serviceable cornerback in McDougal is a good haul. The flip side is, presuming that Seattle is as good as we think they're going to be, those first-round picks are going to be towards the back end.
And that's what we talked about, though. We knew there was no way they were getting 2 first-round draft picks from a team that was going to give us picks in the top 15. We knew that wasn't going to happen.
So Douglas has to obviously, hopefully, use those picks wisely.
Of course.
Now you need to see what McDougal can do, and now we need to see what Ashlyn Davis and Marcus May. So we talked a lot about this now. Does this make this more likely than the Jets try to extend Marcus May?
Absolutely. Look, you got to look McDougal, and I don't know. Look, he's 29. He has made 75 starts in his career. The bottom line is he is a really good cover safety. That's all he is. He's a good cover safety. That's nothing like Jamal Adams. Jamal Adams is the exact opposite. So that's a different type of player. But yeah, Marcus May will now get an opportunity to prove himself, play a full season and stay healthy. And if he can do that and make plays, then yeah, you definitely pay Marcus May. And then we worry about Bradley McDougal later, because Bradley McDougal's the type of guy that you could probably continue to re-sign every year at I would assume at a bargain number.
The key now is Williams, to me, now tries to mold Ashlyn Davis in a little bit of the Jamal Adams mode, where he's a play wrecker.
We hope so.
He moves him all over the place, taking advantage of his speed in order to try to create havoc defensively.
We hope so.
That's how I foresee them trying to use Davis now.
And see, I had this happened to me. Similar situation as a Net fan, and when Sean Marks took over, I was noticing everything he was doing. And it took the rest of the league about a year later until they figured out how really smart Sean Marks was. And I could tell that early because I've been a Net fan ever since I was a kid. I followed all of their GMs. Rod Thorne was awesome. Everyone else pretty much no good. So I knew what was good and what was bad. And I could sense this, they've got the right guy. I could tell within a few months the Nets have got the right guy. And there's no doubt about that now. I'm having the same feeling with Joe Douglas. I am so confident right now after this trade that the Jets have got the right GM. Now, do they have the right coach? That's the last step. And do they have their franchise quarterback too? So there's still 2 more steps to go. But I think the hardest part is to get that really smart GM that can get you players and find the right head coach to lead your team. And I feel real happy about knowing that we've got ourselves, in my opinion, a rising star running our team.
So a couple of things. So Mark's clearly learned from the benefit of a tremendous organization in San Antonio,
yep.
which impacted the way he thinks and the way he handled things. And he stepped on board to a team that was bereft of picks, as you know, because of the trades they made to try to make the run at the title. And he found a way to find gems and built up the organization to the point of where they were able to sign both Durant and Irving. And look, to me, the jury is still out necessarily on that because you know what Kyrie is like.
Sure.
And Durant hopefully
I'm not going there. But what he did to put them in the position.
In a position to try to win, right? Douglas, similarly, where he learned under Ozzie Newsome, and he learned in Baltimore, and he also learned in Philly, right?
Yep.
But the key point is going to be now is Marks was willing to pay elite talent, which is how he got both Durant and Irving. The jury is still out. We have to see how Douglas handles that and whether or not he's willing to go beyond what his normal budget was to bring certain guys on board. And the piece also with Darnold, look, he's going to be completing his rookie level contract relatively soon. This is the window where you hopefully want to start winning because it's going to cost you a lot more money to keep him. And if he is not your franchise quarterback, then you've now set yourself back several more years in terms of the path of the organization to get to the next level.
All right, now let's take a look at, well, first of all, I'm sure everybody knows the details. So the Jets not only trade Adams and a 4th-round pick in 2022, so that's not the next draft. They also get the 2021 first rounder, the 2022 first rounder. They also get a 2021 third rounder, and they get Bradley McDougall, who, as I said, has 75 career starts at safety. So it's not like the Jets are, we have to start Ashlyn Davis. No, they don't. They can start McDougall, they can start May, and they can work Davis into the lineup. So that's the deal. Now, I was looking over at Pro Football Talk. I went over the responses from anybody who wanted to respond on the Jets trade for Jamal Adams to the Seahawks. And here were some of the responses. Seahawks fleeced. Holy mackerel. This may be as bad as the Mac trade. And 838 people agreed. Only 89 disagreed. Jets made out like bandits. 920 agreed. 35 disagreed. The Seahawks gave up 2 first-round picks for a safety? Are they insane? 1,048 pro, 38 against. So I can go down the line on that. The point is, and this is why I was saying, nobody thought the Jets would get 2 first-round draft picks for him. Only we talked about the only way you give them up is if you get those 2 first-round draft picks. That's exactly what happened. And yeah, we're going to talk about, well, what happened. We don't know what they're going to get in with the first-round picks, and it's still going to be debated how it works out for the Jets and the Seahawks. But just like you said about Marks, and even though he took the Nets from where they were to where they are and has superstars on his team, yeah, that's great, but we don't know the result of that. But we have to grade the GM on the moves. We don't necessarily grade them on the results just yet. We have to grade them on how great it was that they were able, or Douglas in this situation, how great it was that he was able to get 2 first-round draft picks for a safety, especially a very openly disgruntled safety that was trashing the organization every chance he got.
So I'll agree with you in terms of the view that the Jets, quote unquote, fleeced Seattle, right? But on the flip side, right, if Seattle views
Oh,
that
I don't think
Adams
they
is
did. I gave you what the fans were saying.
If they view that Adams is the difference maker, right? And a lot of the ESPN article compared him to Tyrone Matthew, which is another ex-LSUer, the Honey Badger,
Mhm.
right? If their view is
He
that
is.
he can play a role similar to Matthew and
Yeah.
be that disruptive force that they need from the blue line to upgrade their defense, which we saw last year took major steps backward. If they view that that's what they needed to potentially get back
Yep.
to that Super Bowl level, then in their view, they paid the right price for him, even regardless of what everybody else
And I
thinks, which
think
is
that,
part of the reason, obviously, why
and I think
they're
they
willing to
did.
make the trade.
I think it was a great trade for both teams. So I'm not trying to sit here and go, hey, I thought the Jets did great, and boy, was Seattle stupid for doing it. I didn't say the Jets should get 2 first-round draft picks because I was looking to fleece somebody. I said it because I thought that was the value of Jamal Adams. And the team, maybe the best team to get the best value, made the deal because, again, in their point of view, like you said, their picks are going to be 25, 31, something like that, maybe 32. And maybe they win a Super Bowl with Jamal Adams. That's what you do. That's why you give up those picks to win a Super Bowl, and you don't worry about the draft picks later. So I think it's a really good trade for both teams. I'm not going to sit here and just bash Jamal Adams now that's on Seattle and root for them to lose. I thought Seattle, before their injuries last year, they were my pick to win the Super Bowl. And I was thinking of picking them to win the Super Bowl this year without Jamal Adams. So, of course, I'm probably going to pick them to win the Super Bowl now. Okay, now some more things that were said leading up to this. Well, actually, after the trade. So Adams wrote on his Twitter handle to the Seahawks organization and fans, "You have a man on a mission, a man all in on winning a Super Bowl, being the best leader and teammate he can be, a man who will give everything he has to the city of Seattle and to the 12s all across the world. Thank you for believing in me." And then he writes to New York and especially Jets fans, "I love you and I will always love you. You all will hold a special place in my heart forever. When I came into the league, you embraced me and watched me grow. We went through it all together. Thank you for the love and support all 3 years." Well, Jamal, just, and I probably say this for a lot of Jet fans, kiss my ass, because I just don't care about you anymore as a fan. Just don't, because your words mean nothing to me. They mean nothing to a lot of Jet fans. And here are some responses from that post. "How long before Adams turns on Pete Carroll like Earl Thomas? Disgruntled employees for one company do not suddenly become exemplary employees at another company. There will be a brief honeymoon, then the marriage will sour," and on and on and on. And I'm glad there were fans that took notice as well. Like I said before, I think there are a ton, probably 90% of Jet fans, maybe less, maybe more, that at this point, they just Jamal, just leave. Shut up. Everything you say, it doesn't mean anything to us anymore, because everything you basically have said over the last few years meant nothing. And why do you think Le'Veon Bell was angry at you? Because you recruited him to come there and then you bolted the next year and made it sound like this was a great organization in your mind. Come to the Jets, we're going to win a Super Bowl. And then you start trashing the same organization and force a trade. I mean, what kind of a person does he think he is when he backstabs teammates like that?
It's why the NFL is called not for long, right? And I look, Adams made it very clear his goal was to get paid and to win a title. He didn't think he was going to get paid in New York or wasn't going to get paid quickly enough, and he clearly didn't think that the
Well,
Jets were
quickly
on the
enough,
right path
yes.
to
He
winning a
wanted it
title.
this year.
Right?
He wanted it now.
He wanted, yeah, he wanted to get. Again, it's hard to fault someone based upon what we've seen in the NFL in the past. Look, you know as well as I do, Greg. Once a team views your usefulness as being gone, you are out the door in a heartbeat, right? So I don't begrudge anybody who wants to get paid. However,
Dude, how
you
old
had a
is he?
contract.
Yeah,
You
exactly. How
also
old is
signed
he?
that contract. You feel that you've exceeded that contract. Quite likely, that's no question the case. But you also potentially had a general manager who was willing to work with you to sign you
He
long term
was. He
if you were
was.
willing to be patient. Now,
Mm-hmm.
his views on gays, look, Gase has been very polarizing since he was brought on board. I said
Nobody
immediately I wasn't
believes what
necessarily
he
in
said
favor
about Gase.
of
He
of
said
him
it
being
with
brought on
Manish
board there.
Mehta because he knows that is exactly what that did, and that pushed him right out the door.
Look, this I don't.
To move along with Manish Mehta in an article, he was making that crap up. I don't
look, put it
trust
this way.
anything. Have you heard anybody else that's been
No,
under Adam Gase say that?
But again, you and I both will agree, right? If we don't see progress from the Jets this year,
of course, but that has nothing to
Gase is
do. That's
no
a different
question in the
story.
crosshairs.
That's a different story. That's something that we'll talk about when we preview the season and we talk
Okay.
about Adam Gase's job. And that has nothing to do with John, because nobody believes Jamal Adams. That's
No,
just
well, again, nobody also believes Manish Mehta all the time either.
oh, exactly. That's why when he put those two together, he knew what was going to happen. He knew what that was accomplishing, and it
And if
accomplished
you
what he
read that,
wanted.
you read the headline from today's column, it says something along the lines of Johnson not having the money to pay. But then when you read the column itself that he wrote today, it mentions nothing about the dollars that are available.
Who was that? What was that article?
Manish Mehta wrote a column
Manish
today.
Mehta? Okay.
Right? And
yeah.
the header
What did he
talked
say?
about something along the lines of, well, Johnson not having the funds or the dollars to be able to pay, right?
Okay.
If you go on and read the column itself, within the body of the column, nothing is mentioned in terms of the available funds.
Yeah. And by the way, I don't know why he's even talking about Johnson.
The headline talks about it, but it's not even mentioned or referenced within the body of the column itself at all. I read it 3 times to be sure.
Yeah, and Johnson, I mean, and he knows perfectly well that Johnson is not running his team. He's not. What does Johnson have to do with paying the money? It's Christopher Johnson is running this team. Which we'll get into Woody in just a minute because we only have a few minutes to go here. But yeah, that and look again, and I have to keep stressing this. We have to remind ourselves that maybe this began with understanding where Jamal was coming from. With hey, Eddie Jackson got paid early. I'd like to get paid early, but something happened that just. I don't know what it was that triggered him, but it didn't become about money anymore. And I say that because, again, my point is he's been traded to Seattle. He's not going to get paid this year. They don't have the money to afford him. So he's not even going to say a word about, I'll go to training camp in Seattle, but they know I want to get paid, and he's not going to say anything negative along those lines. So he wanted out for whatever reason. I don't know. I don't think we're ever going to know because again, Joe Douglas isn't going to tell us. We're never going to trust anything Jamal Adams has to say ever again. But and as I said before too, I bet you this doesn't happen if it wasn't for the pandemic. I think what the pandemic did, it put a lot of kids like this with too much time and thinking on their hands. They didn't have enough distractions, and he just allowed this to boil into something where if he had these normal distractions of a normal NFL offseason, I don't think any of this happens.
It's feasible. It's also feasible that if he was with his teammates or with the coaching staff, the general manager in camp together, maybe it would have happened. I mean, it's feasible. It's also feasible. We said, we talked about it's possible that he may have felt that Douglas negotiated or didn't negotiate in bad faith or didn't negotiate, and that may have been a factor, right? I'm assuming there's a confluence of events that led to the end result here, which we may never fully know. But on paper, the Jets are clearly a far lesser team today than they were a couple of days ago, making their uphill battle a little bit more difficult. But on the flip side, they do hopefully have the available picks, presuming we all agree. We all thought, look, I thought Douglas did a great job this year. The only disagreement I had this year was I thought he should have added another wide receiver from a deep pool during the draft, even late when there was a couple of guys still available. And all depends on how they're going to pan out. Free agency, we thought he did a pretty good job. So I think from a player personnel perspective, we like what he brings to the table. Now the question is going to be is can you get additional players from an elite level to be able to uplift the talent where we think it needs to get to?
And then, by the way, one last thing on Jamal, and I'm not reading this because I want to get into the Adam Gase thing, but just want to prove a point that when he did come out with the Adam Gase article, if you read, once again, you read the responses from Jet fans, more than likely, or even from the average non-Jet observer, here were some of the responses after he ripped Adam Gase. Let's see. More like whining. Another one, blah, blah, blah. Another one, go away, Jamal. Another one, Jamal wants a big contract. GM should take notice of this type of divisive behavior, and so on and so on. And the point I wanted to make in reading all of those comments on each of those issues was this isn't just what I think. There are a lot of people out there that feel the same way. Okay. Now, last thing, we didn't have an opportunity to talk about Woody and everything that took place regarding this last incident that has come out regarding racism again. Big surprise. And the reason we didn't have another show on it was because there's just no reason to. I mean, Woody has vehemently denied these accusations. There's nothing in his background that leads me to believe that these accusations are true. And matter of fact, if I did have to put my life on the line to decide which way I was going to go, I'm definitely going Woody Johnson. Not because I know Woody Johnson, but because I know the other people on the other side. When CNN is telling the story, I know exactly what they're up to because this is all about everything that's been going on with sports, especially the NFL and racism and so forth. Well, who is the only owner in the NFL that works basically for Donald Trump? It's Woody Johnson. So let's find a way to make Woody Johnson racist. Let's find a way to kick him out of the league because why not? We're kicking everybody else out and we're trashing the godlike men like Drew Brees. So why wouldn't we trash and hope that Woody Johnson would get kicked out of the NFL? So this story was never going to be something we were going to talk about, but we decided obviously to talk about it now because of everything that has happened, and we had a little bit more time here. So just in case people haven't really been following up and everything, I want to remind everybody that he's the U.S. ambassador to the United Kingdom for Donald Trump. That's the reason why Christopher Johnson has taken over his duties, and until he gets rid of that position, Christopher will remain running the Jets. And by the way, if Trump does win another 4 years and Christopher remains running the Jets, I think that'd be a good thing for the Jets. If Trump loses, we may be in trouble because I really like the way Christopher's running this team. He's the one that hired Joe Douglas. And so far, I think the Jets are looking a lot better, foundation-wise than with Woody. But why don't you also talk a little bit about the actual accusations that have come out regarding Woody Johnson?
Sure. So there's two separate accusations. I'll touch on the second one first. There's an article in the Daily News that did a good job of breaking it down, right? So the second series of allegations about Johnson are even more serious and more troubling than the ones involving him trying to trump up business for a golf course. Second series of allegations involve both racist and sexist comments allegedly made by Johnson. Those have resulted, again, according to CNN, as you mentioned, in complaints to a State Department Inspector General and have gotten the attention of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Multiple sources told CNN that Johnson, quote-unquote, questioned why the black community would want a separate month to celebrate black history and argued that black fathers didn't remain with their families and that was their real challenge. That's incident number two. The first incident, which is referring to the golf course, was just as troubling, right? So one is that Johnson lobbied the senior member of the British government in charge of Scotland for another British Open to be awarded to President Trump's golf course at Turnberry.
All right, as far as that happened, well, I would think that whoever it is that he lobbied to, well, first of all, we don't know where the story came from. And I mean, did it come from the person who he lobbied to? Did it come from his assistant? I would think that that's something that we'll figure out. I mean, the second part, I don't think we're going to ever find out. There's not going to be a smoking gun there. The first one, I think there's more possible that if he actually did lobby for Trump to have his golf course host a British Open, I think we would find out about that. Now, I don't know what would happen to Woody Johnson, but hey, again, if anything happens to Woody Johnson, as we've been saying, and this is another reason we didn't even talk about this, was because Woody Johnson does not run the New York Jets anyway. So if the NFL decided, okay, Woody, you did something wrong, we're going to suspend you. You cannot now. Oh, wait a second, you don't run the team anymore. Okay, you can't come back. Well, it doesn't affect the Jets at all because Christopher just would continue to run the team.
Agreed. I mean, it's Look, I'm not going to go into the accuracy or potentially inaccuracy of it. I'm not going to have discuss politics either when it comes to
No,
it.
we don't want to do that.
The question is if the NFL has decided that there's enough of an impact where they need to take an action, right? They could potentially say, look, you're not welcome back, presuming that's the case. And as Johnson has moved stuff into a trust or separately, everything has been moved over to his brother. His brother would continue to run the team. And clearly, we haven't seen necessarily any similar incidents associated with his brother.
A matter of fact,
From
his
any,
brother, when the first incident came out about kneeling for Colin Kaepernick, Christopher Johnson was one of the very first owners that really bent over backwards for that movement and talked about, the need to have this an open discussion, and we have to talk, we have to understand, et cetera, et cetera. And we're behind them 100%. This was 3 years ago
yep.
when a lot of people kind of dismissed it and it went away. So if anything, Christopher Johnson has been one of the owners that's actually really looked the best in this, I don't want to call it a
No,
controversy, but in this topic,
if you remember, he was arm in arm with his players when they did the national anthem.
Yep. So, and I also, by the way, it was interesting that you said that one part in there about, because I don't think we're going to find out whether any of this is true or not unless we hear him speaking somewhere and we get tapes from it. But I don't understand when he said that part about black, what was it? Black fathers were them not being around was a big part of like the fall of the black family.
He argued that black fathers didn't remain with their families, and that was the quote unquote real challenge.
Okay. Now, if he did say that, or if that is something that was hey, that's a gotcha. That is no gotcha. That there's a lot of people, including blacks, who believe that that's the truth. So I'm not even sure why they put that in there. Sorry. So I don't get that. But anyway, everything else, I would think that unless it's something that has to do with a gotcha moment, we're not gonna find out. And as we said, it won't matter anyway because Christopher's running the team. I just think it's interesting that in that article, I believe the Mike Lupica article, it's titled, what is it titled? Woody can't buy the Jets a Super Bowl, just like he can't
write a check to clean up his mess in the UK.
Yeah. So let's dig at the Jets again. Any way we could dig at the Jets, and not only dig at the Jets, but isn't it interesting? But Mike Lupica must know everything. He must know. He must have inside sources that hey, hey, he knows the story. So he's going to trash Woody Johnson and no jury. He's the jury. And in the USA Today, it was this. I think the title was something along the line is Woody the NFL's version of Donald Sterling? That was a title in the USA Today. Oh. Very nice. Very nice.
The people who write the columns are not normally the ones who write the headlines. So
yeah. Well, it doesn't matter. But those people who were writing the headlines too, they're all could do with those people. They know too. They're not again. It's about selling stories, and it's disgusting. All right. Anyway, but like we said, no matter what happens with Woody Johnson, the bottom line is we want everybody, all Jet fans, to know it does not matter because Christopher is running the team, and Christopher is not selling the team, and he's not going to be forced to sell the team. And do you agree with me that Christopher Johnson has done a pretty good job since he's been?
Yeah, I think he's done a very good job. I think he's brought some hopeful stability to an organization that's been bereft of it for many years. So. Yeah, I mean, in terms of the transition from Woody to him, it's been nothing but a net positive for the organization.
Now, training camp starts Tuesday, right?
Yep.
Okay, so we'll be on at some point. I don't know when. You can kind of call this our training camp preview, which is pretty sad. But we'll probably do some sort of a training camp. I just wanted to get training camp underway so I could actually it's really starting, because I don't trust this stuff. I want to see them actually out there. I don't want to see any, we got to go back and cut things out for a few days. So once I see them out there for 3 and 4 and 5 straight days, maybe by early next week, we'll do a training camp show and then kind of get back into the swing of things, doing a Jet show every week and talking about the things we want to talk about, the roster, the coaching staff, and so forth. And that includes, of course, Adam Gase, because not only Gase and Sam Darnold, this is a huge season for both of them. because I feel confident in Christopher Johnson. I feel confident in Joe Douglas. Now I need to feel the same way about Sam Darnold and Adam Gase.
It's a big year, as you mentioned, for both of them. We'll talk more training camp to see if there's any other guys that are out there. We know Logan Ryan is still out there. We've talked a little bit about. We'll have to see what kind of other moves,
Yeah.
and we'll go through position by position. I do think we talked about during free agency and during the draft, there were other moves that could have and maybe should have been done. But this is a big year, and if they struggle, the impact on both of those players, both the player and the coach, could be wide reaching. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, we can. And look, if the day before, like what happened to me the other day when Juan Soto doesn't play on opening day because the same day he's about to play, he gets the virus. Uh, we all know as Jet fans that we're just counting. We won't trust Sam Darnold is going to be out there playing in week one until he's out there on the field week one, because we all know what could happen with Sam Darnold. So, but what I was going to mean by that is there will be no excuses this year. Even if Sam Darnold gets the virus, even if there are another 50 injuries, it's just the way of the world. We all understand Adam Gase deserves a mulligan what happened last year. But if all of that happens again this year, you just unless you see positive movement, it's just the way of the world. So they've got their mulligan. Now it's up to and Sam Darnold's probably had a mulligan and a half because he's missed games the first few years. No more missing time for Sam Darnold, and the Jets need to be battling for a playoff spot this year to prove that Adam Gase might be the right guy for the job.
Time will tell. I think it's going to be an uphill battle to do that.
All right. Well, we don't know when we're going to be back on the air, Jan, but we'll definitely be back to preview training camp early next week. Does that sound like a plan?
Sounds like a plan.
All right, Jan. Thanks a lot. RotoWire, what are you doing before I let you go?
A lot of did some small components of contributing to the playoff preview, at least for the play-in round, and then also hockey, and then baseball-wise, clearly with the season starting. My weekly NL Fab article the last couple of weeks has had about 60 or 70 names in it. So now that baseball started, and even with everything going on, has been impacted. A couple of players have landed on the IL due to COVID. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens in sports, especially with the NHL moving to the bubble starting today and tomorrow, with games starting next week, and the NBA similarly. How much teams are able to protect themselves and their players from potentially getting exposed and contracting COVID, which is going to be even more difficult in the NHL, in the NFL, given the type of sport that it is.
All right, and we're going to talk hockey tomorrow on our hockey show. So looking forward to doing that and getting everybody caught up on everything, including me, get caught up on the last few months as the playoffs begin on Saturday, correct? In hockey?
Playoffs begin on Saturday,
okay.
August 1st, 12 p.m. Rangers, Carolina is the first game.
All right, very good. Jan, appreciate it. We'll talk to you next week for more of Jets FM, maybe a week from Monday, something like that.
Sounds good.